Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope you guys are having a good day. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School, and I'm gonna let you guys get a chance to kind of come into the conversation as I go live. I want to say hi to everybody on Facebook, and I want to say hi to our friends on Instagram. Instagram is the Real Boyce Watkins, and also everybody on YouTube. What's going on? Let's jump right into it. So there's a consistent conversation going on involving something that I don't think can be ignored by anybody, and it relates to cannabis. Cannabis is something that we all kind of grew up with our opinions on it one way or the other. Either it was okay or it wasn't. In my space, it wasn't okay, but my views have changed over time. And there's a lot of money being made, a lot of changes happening, a lot of legalization happening, things like that. And there's controversy. So I thought that it would be good to have an interesting conversation about the state of the cannabis industry. And the person that I brought in is none other than C. Simone Kaysen. Simone is, I hope it's okay if I call you
Yeah,
Simone.
yeah, call me
She
Simone,
is,
please. Sure.
they call it the dope chick on Fly
Mhm.
Nubian Queen. She is an expert on stocks, money, and weed, and as well as other things, and a very interesting person to talk to. So before we get started, I want to ask my sister, how you doing today?
I am wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. B, for having me.
I'm really glad that you're here. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate that very much. And also, I'll stop and say real quick, hello to Kirk Bond and Nakia and Kim and everybody else who's coming in. This is going to be a good conversation. And so, without me doing all the yapping, I want to first, Simone, you define yourself as quote unquote a retired drug dealer. I
Yes.
thought that was interesting. So tell me about that.
Well, you know what, Dr. Boyce, I have been in the finance industry for over 10 years and definitely a serial entrepreneur. But I probably would say my first job, I actually was a drug dealer. I grew up in a neighborhood just like everybody else in a small town. And I sold weed in high school, got in trouble for selling weed. And then, of course, graduated to cocaine and some other things when I was in college. But reformed myself. We'll make sure that we say that. Reformed myself, and then started went to college, and then went on to open up a few other businesses, and then later became a financial advisor and opening up an insurance agency along with the financial consulting agency. So this was I guess I would say I was kind of born for this, right? I didn't know that I would be someone who talked about money, stocks, and weed, but um, yeah, pretty much. I guess I was born for it. Born for it. So there we go.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, so I thought that was a really creative description. Retired drug
Mhm.
dealer.
Yep.
But it's funny because you're in the cannabis industry, and
Yep.
so that term drug dealer it's a loaded term. But
Hmm.
technically, it doesn't seem like you retired. You just shifted the game. You just took the game you learned over here, and you're applying it over there. And
Hmm.
either way, the game's helping you win. Can you kind of talk about that transition and what that's been like for you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, so let's talk about two things. First thing is we got to think about the black stigma and the white privilege behind that term, right? So, first thing that we wanted to address is that, yes, before when African Americans and minorities were growing and selling marijuana, they were drug dealers. And now that corporates and white Americans have taken it, now you get a chance to be a caregiver, which is why this cat is so important and so popular, because it talks about the retirement. But for me, for my transition, pretty much I definitely, as I said, I started off getting in trouble probably when I was a kid, like anybody else. Later on, going on to college, still kind of making ends meet. I actually moved from Michigan to Chicago and had to do what I had to do. So drugs were definitely a part. Later on, kind of got into some trouble with a couple guys that I met. And then as I went on, one of the things that I will say is I always had really, really dominant Black men in my life, Black men who really, really believed in me. I think that that's something that a lot of sisters don't get a chance to say. Right. So I had Black men that were even street guys, but they were really, really, they really believed in who I was. Guys would always tell me there was something special about me. And so that they would invest in me or whatever. So even going forward, as with me being in the streets or whatever, it was always making sure that I went to school. I had a boyfriend who had been in and out of trouble his whole life, but was always concerned on whether or not I did my homework. you know? So I had these great relationships with these guys who just were like, you're going to be something. And so I think that I always kept in the back of my head, even though there were probably times that I did things that I thought I had to do, I always had these great brothers that were like, you got to keep going. You got to hustle. And even still to this day, I got 20, 30-year relationships with guys who are still street guys. It's like, man, you a dope chick. You know what I'm saying? So definitely being able to have that was a transition. What I did do is a lot of the skills that I learned probably in the streets, when I got to the corporate world, because I went on and I started to work in a bank and in investments, I was able to leverage that bossness and kind of the discernment and making decisions with my gut. And that catapulted me really, really quickly. I went into a bank program and they had a 12-month program to be an investment advisor. I did it in 9 months. Within that next year, before that next year was over, I skipped 2 promotions and got into another position as an advisor. And I was managing over $100 million in assets. So,
wow, I love it.
You know, it's about taking, you gotta, I think I've seen a couple videos where individuals and they talk about people that come from a street background or people that do different things and how they can leverage, how we have all of these CEOs behind bars, right? All these Black CEOs behind bars. And I think that is true, because most of the stuff that I really, really learned, and probably the gut and the part that makes me not scared, that's not what I learned out of a book from college.
Interesting. Well, I mean, you definitely got an education, right? I mean, there's a lot of ways to get an education. It's just
right.
Not learning something, right? And you learn, and it's best if you learn something that gives you, a meaningful skill. Like Dr. Claude Anderson makes jokes that people got master's degrees and ain't mastered shit.
Right.
What have you really mastered, right? So the question is, have you mastered something? What have you mastered? And if you haven't mastered anything, then you got to question the foundation of the whole educational system and why you spent, $200,000 getting that college degree or whatever it was, right? So I think, so by the way, everybody, I'm talking to C. Simone Kisan from Fly Nubian Queen. She's the dope chick. She specializes in money stocks and weed, but she's deep in the cannabis industry. And she, again, defines herself as a retired drug dealer. I don't think she's retired. I think she flipped the game, and now she's doing
the game. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. I'll take that.
Yeah, she's taken that degree that she got from her life experience and has applied that to become very effective in the cannabis industry. And now let me dig deeper and ask a question. So, and this is not a hater video. Everybody who's watching, please give her a thumbs up. Show support for the sister. Thumbs up, share, like, subscribe, all that. You mentioned to me somebody whose name I think most people know. This person's name. His name's Dr. Umar Johnson.
Yeah.
People have mixed opinions about Umar. You can love him or hate him, but he's you're gonna remember him, right? He's a memorable kind of guy. I happen to think he's actually the best, one of the best speakers I've ever seen.
Yes.
Even though I don't think he has anything good to say about me. I've never heard Umar say anything good about me, but I'm gonna say something good about him and say he's an extraordinary speaker. And but he's interesting, right? But here's the thing: you mentioned to me that Umar made some comments about how he's not in support of the legalization of marijuana, that he does not support that. And when I heard that, I did pay attention, because I do listen when people talk about the things that can be done to weed or any drug, right? The way things, like I've heard we've all heard stories about somebody hitting some weed that was laced with something, or some synthetic weed that caused them to go eat out people's guts and stuff like that. What was it that Umar said about the legalization of marijuana and his opposition to it that got to you? And what parts of that statement do you agree or disagree with?
Sure, definitely. So again, I'm going to say I'm a fan of Dr. Umar, right? I definitely think he's a cool brother, and I think that he hits on a lot of great issues. But I think that there are some opportunities in some of the stuff that he says, especially what he said about the legalization. So when I talk about this, the things that I like that he says about just period, as far as the African American community and the school that he's looking to open is one, he talks about sustainability in agriculture, right? He talks about expungement, and he talks about reparations. And then last but not least, he also talks about getting children off of opiate drugs and cocaine drugs as far as Adderall, right? All of those things are actually achieved with the legalization of marijuana, and we can go through them. All right. So let's talk about sustainability in agriculture and owning land. One of the major issues for that in the African American community is that, guess what? We don't have relationships with big box grocery stores. We don't even own a lot of our own grocery stores. So when someone that's sitting on 5 or 10 acres of land and they grow corn, who the hell are they selling it to? We're not buying it in the hood because we live in a food desert. But if you allow them the opportunity to be able to grow cannabis or hemp, a crop that they can actually get anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 an acre, that allows them the opportunity to grow other things such as soybeans, corn, and a host of other things. In addition to that, we've legalized hemp. So now these farmers can actually participate, and they can actually have their crops they can have their crops be insured by the government. The government has government subsidies insurance. That's 50%. So they'll pay 50% of the premium for this. So this offers a great opportunity on legalization. Next thing that we talk about us going to jail and going to prison. I think it's absurd for the government to be able to profit from taxes of selling of marijuana, but a Black man or a brown man or a white man doesn't get a job because they sold marijuana. You can't make that make sense to me. And that only happens with the legalization of marijuana, because you're asking the government to say, hey, we fucked up, we're sorry, we're going to take this off of your record. That doesn't happen any other way. That's the only way that it happens. Entrepreneurship is a great, great deal. We have to think about entrepreneurship. So just as we saw with prohibition, just as we saw with anything else that's going on, that if we do not, that these dispensaries will be placed in urban areas. Now, if you are morally against it, you should have reached out to your state senator and make sure that your municipality doesn't have it. But you don't get a chance to be docile and allow for white Americans and other cultures to put in dispensaries that are not going to add no value or entrepreneurship to the area. When I was growing up, we used to have Black liquor stores. My uncle owned one. I come back to the hood, somebody else named Habib owns all of them. We don't own any of them. That's a big, big thing. So if it's going to come, we have to participate in it. And there's a green rush and a lot of entrepreneurship that's available in many, many states. But we've seen it in Colorado and in California, where the market has been saturated because African Americans and people of color have waited too late to actually get in and try to make a move.
Interesting. Okay, so Simone, you said people do call you Simone, right? I want to make sure.
Yeah, that's what you call. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So Simone, and I'm talking to C. Simone Kessan from Fly Nubian Queen. We're talking about money stocks, weed, and everything in between, and the legalization of marijuana and how this is going to affect our people. And by the way, everybody, please hit that thumbs up button. If you're on YouTube, we need you to hit the thumbs up button, because that's how the algorithm brings more people in. Same thing with Facebook. If you're on Facebook, please just hit the share button, hit the hearts and likes, and give us some activity, make some comments. That's what brings people in. Now, with that said, Simone,
yeah.
You know, what's interesting to me, and I'm wondering what you think about this.
Okay.
I'm always hesitant about the comparison of weed to liquor. Like, I understand the prohibition aspect of that comparison. That makes perfect sense to me. But when I think about liquor, I don't think about something that really does much good for anybody other than making us feel better. But the health effects of liquor tend to be pretty negative, right? With weed, you know, I imagine you can also feel better. I don't smoke, but people that smoke seem to enjoy it, right? Whatever. But even if you don't smoke it, there are so many health benefits that don't even connect to the idea of getting high, right? You can not get high from some of the I guess better the ingredients. Still experience tremendous health benefits. So it's almost like I wonder if there's an even better way, a better thing to compare it to. Because I mean, yeah, it was impacted by prohibition, but it's almost like if you really want, if you have between weed and liquor, if you have to pick one thing that where making it illegal forever would have probably maybe possibly been better for society, it would be liquor. Like
Right,
more people die from alcohol than any other drug. They've literally
right.
had studies that show that alcohol is the most dangerous drug in the world, more dangerous than crack, more dangerous than meth, more dangerous than heroin, because of the sheer number of lives that are ruined every year from alcohol. You know, and white people are the ones who taught us how to drink. They drink their asses off.
Right.
You know? And
Yeah.
you know, and I see weed as something that was, you know, that to my surprise has a lot of positive benefits, assuming that it's natural and is grown the right way and everything else.
Right.
It has so many positive benefits where it's almost like you're mad because they kept it from us. You know, that all these, you know,
Yeah.
like, you know, when I think about my grandma who had her, you know, who died from cancer, and I sat and wondered, I wonder what would happen if she'd had access to this information. You know, a lot of us got grandmas and relatives that are suffering from ailments, soreness, sickness, you know, whatever. And it just seems like there are things there that are being unearthed that literally lead to this almost being, I wouldn't say a miracle drug, but about one of the closest things that we have to that. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, we have to start off on why it became on the controlled substance list in the first place, and why we have limited research behind it. And that actually started in 1938 with Harry Ansler, who was then the Federal Department of Narcotics. That was his department. And so after Prohibition, and that's why we talk about Prohibition. We talk about Prohibition because it's kind of a way, it's not to compare apples to oranges, but it's a way for me to be able to help people relate to the movement that is going on, right? So just as we've seen over and over again, the Black slave who actually came up with the formula for Jack Daniels, and now 200 years later, his family is just not trying to get royalties. I share this with individuals to say, this can happen again. Why should we have history repeat itself? But when we talk about why it's on the controlled substance list as a whole, is that it happened in 1938, and it interrupted two things. The first thing was he no longer had a bug up his butt for alcohol. He had to have something to fight. The federal department, they have narcotics, they have to have a war, or else he wasn't going to have a job. So critics told him, hey, you need to go after marijuana. Want to know why? It does two things. Hemp as a whole, which hemp, you have cannabis, and cannabis plant turns into marijuana and hemp. Hemp is a far more superior product than anything that we've ever created. I want you to look around your room right now. There's absolutely nothing in your room that you're sitting in that hemp cannot be made into. Paint, wood, paper, plastic, my lipstick. Hemp makes a far more better product, and it was going against cotton. But we all know this whole United States has been built on the backs of Blacks and cotton. So it interrupted cotton. And so that made it a bad thing. And then last but not least, jazz members, people that were jazz and people that were free, who considered themselves free and alternative Negroes, they like marijuana. So it was a win-win for him because he can keep locking up Negroes and they can keep their industry of cotton. And that's why he actually went after marijuana in 1938, and it became a controlled substance. That is also the reason why we have limited research on it, because it's a controlled substance. Because it's a controlled substance, you have limited research on it. Now we fast forward the war on drugs. So Nixon decided he had to extinguish the two groups that was pissing him off, and they weren't going for the war. And that was the hippies and the Black Panthers. And that's where we continue to initiate the war on drugs with marijuana. It had absolutely nothing to do with anything that was found. Everything that actually supports marijuana, that talks about the gateway drug, we need to understand that there's a difference between a gateway drug and an introductory drug. So a gateway drug is a drug that leads you to the gateway of doing something else. So like if you take opiate pills, then you go to heroin. It's provided a gateway to that. Now, an introductory drug, which would be marijuana. So you smoke weed, but weed puts natural cannabinoids in your body, which you naturally have. It's not introducing something new. Sugar introduces something new, an artificial sugar. Opiates introduce something new into your body. cannabinoids do not introduce something new. So when people tell me that, oh, I started off smoking weed, well, yeah, I'm sure it's some other shit going on with you. That ain't your only problem. If you went to weed to crack, that wasn't the only issue you had. You know what I mean? You had other issues that you were dealing with. So it's not a gateway drug because it's a natural drug that naturally enters into your body. Your body already produces cannabinoids. So it's not introducing any new form substance to your body. So there's no addiction to it.
Okay, well, there you all heard it. See Simone Kissan, she's a Fly Nubian queen, and she is the dope chick. She talks about money, stocks, and weed, and a lot of other things. So let's talk specifically, about Umar, and it's always funny, when I say his name, he takes offense to it, which I don't care what people think about what I say, but my goal is not to be offensive or rude.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all.
My goal is to just make a point, but I'm not, I'm not gonna worry about talking about somebody or just because they get offended by it. But I think this is worth discussing. So let me ask you this: if you were to talk to Umar, tomorrow and discuss this issue with him, what are some things you might say to him in terms of ways you can maybe where you'd be able to find common ground with what he believes? And also add in what you know as well, so we can find that you've alluded to that a little bit, right? The idea of other people coming into our hood, like we know they're gonna set the dispensaries up in black neighborhoods. That's a given. We know
that, and we've seen that over and over and over again.
Right, and we know how many black people have been incarcerated for weed. There are people locked up right now for weed possession. Right. We know how much money's being made in weed. We know this is a booming industry. You were telling me about all these different cannabis stocks, and I started buying them right as you and I were talking. I was like, okay, let me go ahead and just invest some money in this. What else might you say to him to help him say, look, brother, I understand where you're coming from, but here's I'm a sister with a different perspective, but I think we can find common ground. What would you say?
So definitely, I think that there's a lot of common ground, because I think a lot of the things that he wants and that he's initiating and building the school around are principles that actually the legalization of marijuana can help lead to. So let's look at it like this. When we talk about expungement, right? So we talk about expungement, and we talk about the fact that African American men and Hispanic men are more likely to be pulled over, due to drugs or whatever, or to be arrested by drugs, right? That cannot be resolved, or their records cannot be expunged without legalization. It doesn't happen like that. Like, the government doesn't say, psych, okay, we were just playing, but we're not going to make it legalized. The only way that these individuals that are underemployed, unemployed, or unhappily employed due to a marijuana offense, is the only way that they can be removed or expunged from their record is for you to legalize it in that state. It doesn't happen, so that he can have a pie in the sky, but without legalization, that doesn't happen. The other thing that we'll talk about is, we definitely talked about the revitalization of the Black farmer. We cannot talk about sustainability as African Americans and not talk about the Black farming system. I come from Black farmers, right? So my family has a ranch in Wayland. Hey, Roberts family. They've been farmers for 75 years. I ride a horse. I come from Black farmers, right? And I'm gonna tell you something. Farming is not a deal. That's a passion. You don't know if this crop is going to be good. You don't know. I mean, there's so many things that go on. And so if you watch, we are seeing a revitalization of the Black farming system. And a lot of it is due to hemp, because they're able to take on a cash crop. So you're offering these individuals to be able to say, hey, I can produce a crop that I know will get me $20,000 to $40,000 an acre. And then in addition to that, I can grow those smaller crops, because if nothing else, we can't ask people to become farmers and they can't even feed themselves. So we got to talk about that. The other thing that I would talk about is one of his big things is Adderall for ADHD kids, right? I live in a small town, but it's an urban town. And I'll share something with you. Because it's a small town, everybody knows each other, right? So even as tight as social media is, we're even tighter because so many people know each other. So when killings or when shootings happen, everybody is affected and they get PTSD. And I don't think that we're actually talking about these kids that are seeing their parents and seeing, shootings. You got to remember, y'all, we are 30 years out from the 80s, which means for the last 10 years, brothers have been coming home from prison that have been locked up for 20 years. For the last 10 years, we don't know what the hell these kids have been watching. So if you mean to tell me that as the upswing in crime and everything else has been going on, you mean to tell me that a grown man that goes off and sees war is affected, but a little kid that sees his uncle or somebody's head blown off, they're not affected? They're dealing with PTSD. One of the things that they do for a lot of veterans is they offer them CBD oil. It's a way of dealing with anxiety and calming because it actually deals with your cannabinoids. So I know that he's an advocate of getting kids off of Adderall. Well, we need the necessary research for them to not put Billy on Adderall and be able to introduce him to CBD. I take CBD twice a day, dyslexia and ADD. So we have to be able to have these conversations. And I think that his decision is based on the thought that there's going to be a mass genocide on weed. And my only answer is between social injustice, criminalization, and the food that we eat and everything else, they got more than enough shit to kill us all off tomorrow. Weed ain't going to be the last defining factor.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, it's sort of like pick your weapon. They got so many ways. They got
so many, Dr. B, if they wanted our asses out of here tomorrow, me and you will both be gone.
Yeah. I mean, well, they're already doing it with things like, just regular food. Like this.
Yeah.
I mean, when you really start researching, when I started trying to lose weight, I started researching what was going on with the food, and I couldn't believe it. I was stunned. I was like, they're allowed to feed us this shit,
Yeah.
And it's just kind of crazy. It's almost like when you're Black, you're usually more empowered, in my opinion, when you find ways to get off the grid.
Yeah.
As possible. Like educationally, if I was raising a child, I wouldn't send my child to nobody's public school. I wouldn't have them working for no white man. And I would probably, if I was really being smart, I would have them eating food that we actually curate for them, as opposed to
that you grow and that you whatever.
Right, exactly. So, okay, so Simone Quesada is who I'm talking to. Simone is with Fly Nubian Queen, and she's the dope chick. Money Stocks is her thing. And so let me ask you a couple more questions. I'm gonna let you get back to the busy day, because I know she's really working, y'all. Like, she's really got her office and she's really doing business, and she ain't bullshitting. Like, I just know this. Like give her a digital, like, what's up, like.
Thank you. You know what, Dr. B, look, when we have our meetings, I'm always in the office working. I probably work like 12, 13 hours a day. People laugh at me, but let me tell you something, y'all. If y'all want to be successful, it is about what you do. You know what I mean? You got to put in the time. Everybody wants to shine on social media. I have on a baseball cap and I'm out running, trying to catch clients and all this other stuff. You got to put it in. You know what I mean? I'm not on the beach in a sexy bathing suit. Not yet. We trying to get it in. We trying to tee up so we can have that life.
There you go. Yeah. Well, it's like work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
You find something that you love to do. You do it a lot. And then when you want to take a break, you can, because you're
right.
Right. That's time. Like, when I don't feel like working, I just stop. I just go. I shut the door. I go on the couch and vegetate until my brain feels like working again.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm okay with doing that is because I know that I'm always going. When I have the energy, I'm trying to be productive with it. I'm doing something with it. I'm not just wasting it. And then that way, when you want to take a break, you can. And you and I were talking about that, just the importance of consistency when it comes to setting goals, creating a business, stuff like that. And you were talking about, and I'd love for you to kind of speak on this more. You were talking about the importance of the consistency, because that was the first thing I noticed about you when you were at Fly Nubian Queen. Like, we have a whole lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to be famous, I want everybody to know my name. But only a few people come in and are really consistent, like are really serious about their shit. Like Michi X came in. I said, yeah, everybody's gonna know who she is. And all we gotta do is put her out there, and she's gonna kill it. She's like Tupac. Like, when Suge and Dre saw Pac, they were like, he's the one. like me too. Biggie
Yeah.
Diller, Biggie Diller, same thing. Consistent
Hmm.
as hell. Yourself, you have that consistency, and I really like that. And that's what I noticed. Like I tell people, I say I can't even deal with you until I know that you're serious about what you're
Man.
doing. Don't ask me to be serious about something that you're not serious about. You like if you're not serious about it, then why you want me to go first? And I saw that. So I'd like for you to talk about that,
Okay.
just in terms of like how that plays a part in how you do business, also how that plays a part in who you do business with.
Oh, definitely. So for me, being in the cannabis, and the financial industry is kind of an oxymoron, right? Because you got this thing of this immoral or illegal kind of thing that's, even though it's legal, but it still has a stigma behind it. And then you have the financial advising, which I'm going to use the word that we both know, fiduciary, right? So you have this fiduciary responsibility to your clients, meaning that you always have to put their needs first. So it's a slippery slope when you're in that space, because you have this kind of not so good product that you're endorsing, but it's behind being a person who always puts somebody else first, right? So for that, me being first thing that I did was I registered both of my business with the Better Business Bureau. First thing that I did, right? So after we got our LLC, we set up everything. I signed the lease on the office and then signed the Better Business Bureau thing, right? And then got a chance to get the ratings. That was very, very important to me because one, I wanted to be reputable, but two, I wanted to represent and make sure that I held myself and my employees accountable at all times. And a lot of that is consistency. When you're an insurance or financial advisor, returning calls, making sure that you're consistent, but even our branding on social media. For me to get the word out in the cannabis space, it's very, very expensive to advertise. So they charge cannabis companies a premium because if you say the word pot, marijuana, or anything, they're going to get you, right? So if you think you be in trouble on Facebook, cannabis companies, you pay a premium. So just to put that in perspective, if one company pays $2,000 to advertise, if you're a cannabis company, it's going to be 5,000, and you have a niche market, right? So you're going to speak directly to your clients. Well, I ain't had that kind of money, but what I did do is I had time and I had effort, and I was able to be consistent. So my name and my brand really, really really spoke to who I was. I also teamed up with some great organizations that were able to support me, but I needed to be consistent. I needed to make sure that I was representing, and I was a woman of integrity and a host of other things. And a lot of that comes with just being a top primetime player all the time. So for me, no matter what, if Dr. Boyce, if you say we're going to do this at 2:00, I'm ready at 1:55, right? That's what we need to be doing. And I'm always trying to be on top of my game. Even when I'm dealing with the assistants or anything on Fly Nubian, they'll always tell you I'm always early. If you ask for something on, I think I told Taryn I was going to have it on Friday. I think I sent it Thursday night. So I'm going to always stay on top of the game. Second thing is, your question was, how do I deal with other people? If you're not a primetime player, you got to get out. So I had employees who were not consistent. I can't support that. What are we going to do? What can I build around that? I can't depend on you. I think now that I've been a Fly Nubian queen, I get groupies. I get a lot of groupies.
You got groupies now?
I got groupies. I got
What
groupies.
does that? What does a groupie look like for women? We kind of know when we talk about groupies, we talk about the women that chase the men, but I know the ladies get the groupies too. But
Oh yeah, I got a lot of
what does
groupies.
that look like when you say groupies as a woman? What does that look like?
Okay, so it's two. They go into one or two categories, right? So you have the one guy who thinks he's kind of smooth, right? So he think he gonna finesse me, but see, I'm a street chick, so you're not gonna finesse me. I'm pretty sharp. So that's the guy who wants to utilize me to get into the weed industry, right? So what's up, baby? How you doing? Oh, I'm fine, man. I was watching your show. Hey, what you know about Crohn's? Man, I don't know nothing. Quit calling me, asking me about weed. You sound crazy. You know what I mean? Hey, my man want to come down here and he want to get in the edible business. I told him to call you. No, you didn't. Don't tell this fool to call me. So you get a lot of those, right? So you get a lot of those. They want to finesse me. They want me to be their girlfriend. I ain't checking for you like that. You know what I mean? So you do get a lot of those that they're big fans. Man, I want you to holler at my girl. She know all about the weed. Bruh, stop calling me, right? So that's the one groupie. And then you get the other ones who just want to be a part of it. So they'll play like they want a job, right? Oh, I can do this, I can do that. They play like they want a job, but they don't really want a job. They just want to tag me in their comments. They just want people to know that they know. You know what I mean? And it's like, come on, man, this is so weird. And they'll say, oh yeah, no, I want to work or I want to join this organization, but that's not really what you want. You just want to tag and say that you was with me. So that's crazy. So I get a lot of that. The groupies.
I think, well, if anybody deserves to have groupies, it's you.
Well, thank you.
You're dedicated. That's a sign of your hard work. Groupies and haters. That's in case y'all want to know what happens when you get a little more public. You get groupies and you get haters. And
you get groupies and the haters.
Number groupies in disguise. That's all they are, right?
Oh, well, I do. You know what? You do get the haters, but the haters, I think now they're in hiding. So at first, when I first started, of course, I was doing weed, people like, she crazy. That ain't gonna never happen. Now it's like, oh, she thinks she all that. No, sis, I kept working, you know what I mean? And while you did whatever. So, you get a few of the haters and, they imitate you or they do stuff. They start wearing hats like you or, rock a, they rock a fatigue shirt like you, like, oh man, I'm your idol. Okay, cool. No problem.
Well, well, I just learned that none of that stuff, none of that stuff's to be taken seriously. I think that it's kind of it's kind of like you learn like I didn't learn like years ago. I'm not even gonna say I consider myself a famous person, but I can't say that I've had experiences in terms of like, I
think you're famous. Well, definitely renowned.
I appreciate it. But I'm thinking about people like Will Smith, like I ain't nothing compared to like
right.
But I mean, like, but I know what it's like to get mobbed by a crowd or to sign so many autographs, your hand gets tired and stuff, or hearing like the same stories over and over again and stuff like that. But it's like the experience I learned from that though was like when it comes to like the whole groupie thing. When you talk about like, for example, men with female groupies,
right?
I didn't know that like it's not really, I think for men it puts you in a real vulnerable space. You can't, because that person who just admires you so much and maybe they want to get with you or whatever, that person can easily be flipped into a hater, right? And so like 1 minute it's, oh my God, I admire you. I think your work is so brilliant and blah, blah, blah. And she's rubbing her breasts on your shoulder.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like I had that. My manager had to pull some lady off because she was all up on me. And I was like, is that your titty on my shoulder? Get me off my shoulder, please. And but then what happens though is like, if it does, this is why I warn people about, like, if it doesn't go well, then it flips into, oh yeah, I slept with this person and they exploited me and they used me and they're really this and really that, right? And so it's almost like people that have this desire to somehow connect with with people they consider to be famous people, like either disrupting them or getting close to them. And I just tell people, like, just watch out for all of that shit, like all of that, like,
I do. I'm very cautious, but like I said, the guys are funny because Dr. B, they try to finesse me. You know what I mean? Like they think I'm slow. Like they think that they really putting one over on me. And, it's usually, I can see the agenda, right? I see the agenda early in. As a woman, I'm 40 years old. So I know when a guy is really digging me, right? And I know when you not. And so, I'm just very, very cautious about who I let into my circle. Especially, I would say things really, I was doing good, but when I became a fly Nubian queen, it really, really kind of catapulted, right? Because it was that, and there was definitely minorities for medical marijuana. So my visibility became so much more, right? And so, yeah, you see it a lot, and you just stay humble and you stay away from them. You hide from them.
Yeah, and don't let it bother you. Don't take it too seriously. I think that's the biggest
You
thing.
say
Right?
that. I learned
Yeah,
that from you. I did
you know,
learn that from you, that you said, they're going to talk regardless, right? And don't take it personal, because these people don't even know you personally.
right. Right. Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of times people they sometimes they make you larger than life in their mind. So they'll make
Right.
up stories about you that that regular people don't do, but they'll like I used to think, like like I one guy was like, he did a whole video where he said that he said I sleep with white women, a lot of white women. Um I'm being financially backed by the Jewish community. And I think he also might have said I was an agent, and so stuff like that. And it was just like, wow, like they really impose all these things. They don't think you live a normal life. They
Right.
start making up these fantasies about the deep conspiracies that you must be connected to.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, though, like that person that loves you to death, you can't get too addicted to that, because if you come out and you say something they don't like, then they might
They're
start to
gonna
hate.
change on you, right? They'll change on
Yeah,
you
you
like a
can't let
rabbit
that
dog.
affect you. You got
Hmm.
to pick your purpose, decide who you are, what you believe in, and fall in love with that person. So if you fall in love with who you are, then you don't really care if people like that person or not. Like I really do get up every day, and I really like the guy that I see in the mirror.
Me
And
too.
yeah, and whenever things get a little weird, I'm always like, well, at least he's got one friend. That's me. Right, everybody in the world may hate him, but I
Right.
think he's all right, and
I
that's
think
all that
he's all
matters.
right.
All right, so everybody, I want you all to know this is C. Simone Kisan from Fly Nubian Queen. How can they follow you on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook?
Yeah, definitely. So everything is C Simone K sign. You can follow me on Facebook. You can follow me. We got a fan page. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's all consistent. It's the letter C, and then CIMONE, and then CASSON. And it's also our website, which is CSimoneKsign.com. So everything is the same. That's how they can follow me. Nothing changes.
All right, and I'm gonna spell it for you all. It's C, the letter C,
Yep.
Simone, CIMONE, Cason, CASSON. That's CIMONE, C Simone
Yep.
Cason. All
Yep.
right, well, we'll take care, and it's great talking to you, Simone. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, I enjoyed you.
Yes, it
Thank
is
you
so
so
cool.
much. You got to have me back.
Yes, I would definitely have you back. And I can tell you all, I talked to her for an hour before we started the interview. She's got a lot of really interesting stories. And so if you want to see more of her stuff, if you go to flynubianqueentv.com, you'll get a
Follow
chance
me.
to see her. Yes, follow her personally and on the platform and everything else.
Yes.
And she's
Yes.
somebody that not only will give you interesting commentary, but she will also educate you on what's going on in the cannabis industry. She educated me. And I told you, as I was listening, she'll tell you, I literally sat there and bought some of the things, some of the stocks that she mentioned and stuff like that. So get in on this. I think that this cannabis thing is going to blow up. I think 10 years from now, it's going to look very different from what it looks like now.
Yes.
And you don't want 10 years from now to be looking back and saying, I could have bought it when it cost this much, or I could have bought in when it was that much. So thank you very much, Simone. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you too. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good one. All right.
You
I'll
too.
talk to you soon, Dr. Boyce.
All right. See you
Yep.
soon. Bye-bye.
I'll see you later.
All
Yep.
right. See you guys later. Hit the thumbs up button before you get out. I'll see you soon. Be good.